And that brings us actually to our next segment, which is that so many family members of the hostages have been calling on Netanyahu to stop the bombing and agree to a ceasefire with Hamas so that hostages can be released. Right. There's been news over the last several days that Hamas is willing to release a significant number of hostages if Israel will stop the bombing for a while. And that makes a lot of sense. The families don't want bombing across the Gaza Strip while their family members are being transferred, because a lot of the strikes are targeted at moving vehicles. There was a case recently where the IDF said there was a car with suspected terrorists in it, and then it turned out it was 3 children under the age of 10 and a mother and a grandmother, and the only survivor was the mother out of those. What they mean by suspicious is that it's moving. And so Israeli families very obviously do not want their loved ones being put into a moving vehicle on their way to safety to be reunited with their family and then hit at the very last moment by an Israeli strike. Right. And so that brings us to a march held in Washington yesterday that Mac and I went to cover.
Producer Mac.
Yeah, Producer Mac. The sound
does not look like a young Mike Johnson.
He does not.
We would never say that.
We kind of messed up the sound, so sadly you're not going to get the same compilation.
You were interviewing people and talking to them about why they were out there.
On the street. Why are you here? Generally, it was to support Israel. Mm-hmm. It was this is what the rally was for. You had some people that said they're standing up against anti-Semitism, and you had a lot of people that we talked to say that they were sorry about the civilian casualty level. But it was just an unfortunate fact, and this is just how it's going to have to be. There was a very interesting moment very early on in the rally where they said, next up, Van Jones.
Yes.
Van Jones is a former Maoist revolutionary.
Yes.
Who's been on quite the journey over the last 30 to 40 years of his life. Became an Obama official and then was kind of fired.
He was the Green Jobs Czar.
Green Jobs Czar, and he was fired when Glenn Beck and Steve Bannon unearthed the fact that he used to be a Maoist revolutionary.
It was lit. This was like 2009.
Like one of the first guys. That was I scooped that back at the Huffington Post.
Wow.
When you were still in middle school or whatever.
No, not quite.
This was 2009, I guess. Yeah. I actually said that it was a win for Glenn Beck. He got a furious email from 2009 Steve Bannon saying, this was my win. How dare you give this to Glenn Beck? We did update also Steve Bannon's win. Fine, you guys can both have this. Since then, you guys all know him as CNN commentator Van Jones. But as a person of the left who's long been anti-war, who's long spoken out against the occupation in Israel, stood up for Palestinian rights, surprising to see him there. He started out his talk saying he was there to stand up against anti-Semitism, but then he did broach the subject of a very gentle "let's stop bombing," and the reaction was quite profound. Let's roll his speech from yesterday.
I'm a peace guy. I pray for peace. No more rockets from Gaza and no more bombs falling down on the people of Gaza. God protect the children. God protect children. Let's end all the horror and all the heartbreak in the Holy Land. Let's end all of it. Let's end all of it. I don't feel powerful to do something about what's happening over there. What I do feel powerful is to maybe do something about what's happening here. Let's take a stand here against anti-Jewish bigotry. Let's take a stand against Muslims. Let's take a stand here against hatred.
And you can see how uncomfortable he gets there.
Yeah.
Initially, when he said that passive formulation of there shouldn't be any more bombs falling from the sky, they're falling out of clouds. There was that initial cheer, and then it took a little while for the crowd to kind of build up the chant of no ceasefire, kind of back at him, which he then hears, and then you see him kind of stumbling a little bit.
I don't know what he expected.
What did you think you signed up for here?
He seemed surprised by the reaction, which is surprising that he would be surprised by the reaction, right.
And then he finished with what, frankly, I think we have to call Islamophobic. He said at the very end, he said he doesn't want to live in a world where people need to worry about letting their Uber driver know that they're Jewish.
Is he referring to a specific thing that happened?
I think there was something there were people, I think, on social media saying that they were nervous about telling their drivers.
Oh, okay.
There are some people that are legitimately nervous about that, but that doesn't make it okay. Like if you are walking past a black person in a parking lot and you clutch your purse or you like run the other way, like you're legitimately afraid, but that doesn't make your fear okay.
Right.
You are, as a culture, we're still like, no, that's wrong. Like stop.
Right.
That's racist to think of every single person as a threat to you. And so for people to say that like every Uber driver is going to be a threat to you if you say that you're Jewish, I thought it's just kind of an ugly way to think about it.
You were watching that live while you were there. I saw you, as you were tweeting it, you were trying to figure out what Van Jones was doing.
Yeah, what's Van Jones?
What he was doing. We have a lot of actually video from this because it was a bipartisan affair. There were thousands and thousands of people there. This was a big turnout. I don't think that's entirely surprising. They had some security.
200,000 probably at least. It was big.
So the mayor here, Muriel Bowser, she said that, as NBC News put it, took steps early on to make sure her police force and the National Guard were ready. DHS, so Department of Homeland Security, quote, raised the security level to the highest designation in anticipation of an enormous crowd and because members of Congress were expected to attend. So, I mean, it was the Palestinian Youth Movement asked its supporters on Instagram, quote, not to engage with participants at Tuesday's pro-Israel event. Huge turnout, was entirely peaceful. It seemed like no skirmishes at all yesterday. So that's fantastic that that these security concerns were perhaps unfounded or perhaps the security deterred anything that would have happened. That said, those members of Congress were eager to take the stage, take the microphone. So let's roll some more clips from people who were talking on the National Mall yesterday.
We got Speaker Mike Johnson, who continues to confirm that he's a real person.
He continues to exist. And he was sharing a stage with Chuck Schumer. Wait until you see the picture of John Fetterman we have, but let's start with these clips here.
The calls for a ceasefire are outrageous.
So the minute I heard of what happened in January 7th, I knew I had to go to Israel. As the first-ranking Jewish Senate Majority Leader, in fact, the highest-ranking Jewish elected official in American history, I not only had a desire to go to Israel, I felt a special obligation to go.
He's so used to saying January 6th when he talks about tragedy, Chuck Schumer, that is. He said January 7th, which is perfect in some ways and just so pathetic. We also have this picture of John Fetterman. We can put this next picture up on the screen so you can see him literally wrapped in the Israeli flag. That's actually saying a source passed along that photo of him from the National Mall. Ryan, the Mike Johnson and Chuck Schumer comments, I think they were almost like back to back in their presentations. They were on the stage together, right?
Yeah.
Nothing surprising. I don't think anything was surprising. There was Isaac Herzog, obviously the president of Israel, beamed in over video and said, Jews all over the world are assaulted for being Jewish. The hatred, the lies, the brutality, the disgraceful outbursts of ancient anti-Semitism are an embarrassment to all civilized people and nations. Jews in America must be safe. Jews all over the world must be safe. Nothing really surprising in the speeches, though.
The most surprising thing I thought was that they invited John Hagee, and he agreed to attend. We can put up this next element for Waleed Shahid. Hagee is kind of the Farrakhan of this issue, like extremely.
I think Farrakhan is the Farrakhan of this issue.
Well, yeah, that too. Well, for the right. Like Hagee is just this out there wild anti-Semitic Islamophobic guy who believes that he's one of the leaders of this idea that it's a good thing that Israel's a Jewish state because in the end days there'll be like cannon fodder or whatever for like the second coming.
Yeah.
I purposely don't know too much about the theory. I know it's out there. But to me, it'd be like, imagine if at the pro-Palestinian rally a couple weeks ago, or a week ago, whatever it was, time is so compressed, that Farrakhan spoke.
Yeah.
Every single person who had anything to do, and wasn't even at the rally, everyone in the squad, everyone who supported ceasefire resolution, everybody who had been remotely critical of Israel would have been asked, do you condemn Louis Farrakhan? And do you condemn the organizers, for inviting Louis Farrakhan? And you know what? Maybe that's fine. Because he is beyond the pale. Well, so what on earth would he be doing on that stage? This guy's beyond the pale. And the fact that he can share a stage with these politicians, and the politicians don't get pressed other than on this program, as Cruz will be later, about sharing the stage with this guy is a kind of mind-blowing double standard to me.
Although, again, I'm a evangelical Christian conservative. I have no idea who this guy is. I actually never heard of him. I am vaguely familiar, like you.
You're in luck.
Yeah.
Keep it that way. He's about.
So, yeah, I mean, after you pointed this out to me yesterday, I was kind of going somewhat deep on it. And again, this is some of
even his speech was crazy. He didn't even tone it down.
Some of what he says is familiar. The language about Israel and the end times, and how some Christians maybe see the political question of Israel through that lens. It's not something that I hear a lot. I don't think there are people on the right that make that argument. I think it's basically. But
when they put him on the stage, it just validates the whole thing.
Yeah, I was just gonna say. Yeah, I think it's it's one of those figments of. It's easily made into a straw man to represent the whole right, when I think it's something that represents a kind of faction of the maybe evangelical Christian right. But even then, it's not representative of the whole movement by a long shot. But you're right. You put the guy on stage, you're undoing any effort to say, hey, no, this isn't us. Yeah,
how he keeps getting out there reflects the power that he has. In Waleed's post, it quoted one of his old sermons where he basically says that Hitler was helping to usher in some biblical prophecy, where he says, God says in Jeremiah 16, behold, I will bring them, the Jewish people, again unto their land that I give to their fathers. And they, the hunters, shall hunt them. And then he says, that would be the Jews. Then God sent a hunter. A hunter is someone who comes with a gun and he forces you. Hitler was a hunter. This is Hagee, this is the guy that literally was on stage yesterday.
Absolute bananas. There's just no excuse to put someone like that on stage.
The people that it was a very peaceful affair. It was, and the Fetterman kind of get up that you saw there was kind of standard attire, a lot of people draped in flags, a lot of flag waving. You had some offensive signs, like finish them off and stuff like that, but not many. It was most people did not have signs. There seemed to be a lot of young people, high schoolers, college students bussed in.
The cheers for Schumer actually was interesting to me. I assume that there were a lot of probably center-left people there.
Well, and I asked a lot of the people how they felt Biden was handling this situation. Mm-hmm. All of them said they were either were happy with how he was handling it, or they were pleasantly surprised with how they were handling it. All the people who were pleasantly surprised with it, I asked them, did you vote for Biden? They said no. Would you ever vote for Biden? They said absolutely not. So it's not like he's winning people over with that, which it matters when it comes to the political calculations. But yes, there was a lot of support for Biden's handling of this so far at that rally.
Hey, if you liked that video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to Breaking Points.
If you want to see the rest of Counterpoints, go to breakingpoints.com to become a premium member and get the full uncut show every morning in your inbox and on Spotify.
Help us build independent news and get the full show every morning at breakingpoints.com.